Hey guys, it's Erik Valdez. I play Kyle on Superman and Lois on the CW, and I'm hanging out here with Elias on the Man Cave Chronicle podcast.
Erik, welcome to the cave.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
And I was just telling you about the view, man. You got a great view behind you.
Yeah, it's these are real trees. This isn't fake. This is I'm up in northern Washington at the moment, so it's a beautiful day up here.
But yeah, man. So like before we jump into your career, the listeners or the viewers know you from as Kyle on Superman and Lois. Man, how this ride has been awesome so far.
It has. This is one of those characters that's really fun to kind of dig into, and from a writer's perspective, where they started with him and where we've kind of gone with him on this journey has been great. I love, the beginning of the season. I loved where it was at because there was a lot of people wondering who this guy was and why he was why he had the attitude he had. Let's just put it that way. But it's a great place to start as a character, and you can really grow, and the art can be really colorful and varying throughout the episodes and everything. So it's been a lot of fun to play, and I like where we've gone with him, and I like where we're going with him. It's cool, man.
Yeah, I can't wait till we dive into that. But before we get into that, so you're like you guys have a journey into the acting world. What's your path? Like, how did you get here?
Well, I mean, geez, it's one of two of my passions. So all I ever wanted to do in life is race cars and entertain people. And, I've said that in a handful of interviews, and it's true. It's always been the case. I think at age 7 was when I did my first play, just a little community theater piece. It was The Velveteen Rabbit, way back in the day in El Paso, Texas, which is where I was living at the time. And loved it, and just got into, there's a longer version of the story, but got into community theater. And then as I went through high school and I only took one semester of college. I'll recommend that you should get an education. It worked out okay for me, but I'm not going to say, yeah, all you need is a semester of college and you're fine. That's not the case. But I did do theater at a collegiate level too, even when I wasn't attending the school. And then got into television and film when I moved out to LA. That was probably 16 years ago, I guess, at this point.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like throughout all this, because you say you grew up in a big area in Texas or a little area?
Relatively good sized city. I was born in Lubbock, Texas. And then I grew up for the most part in El Paso, Texas. El Paso, back then, their population was, I don't know, 750,000, somewhere thereabouts. So I think it's grown since then, but big enough city to have big city lifestyle, but a little bit of smaller town element to it as well. And then, where my grandparents lived outside of Lubbock, which is where I would go all the time. They lived on a farm. My dad and my aunts grew up out there as well. So we would go there for holidays and stuff all the time. So I have that balance of kind of city and country life growing up, which I think is really cool.
So what do you like maybe a 2-part question here. First, what were some of your TV and films that made you more passionate about getting into this? And the second part is when you told your parents, okay, this is what I'm going to go do, they try to push you away from it. Do they want you to do this, a backup plan? What was the goal?
Television and films that inspired me, there's a handful of them. It's funny. I always say that my favorite movie is Top Gun. I'm a child of the 80s. I was born in 79, but grew up in the 80s and 90s. And Top Gun was it's not the best movie in the world by any stretch, but it was just one of those that for whatever reason, the story, it had probably too much romance for me at age, whatever it was when it came out. I think, I wasn't even 10 years old yet, but it had the romance, it had the action, it had the driving music and everything. And that kind of really got me into cinema and to film and piqued my curiosity. And then from that point, there's countless television shows and movies that just would either inspire me to want to be better. I knew I wanted to act and, just challenge myself, even if it was in my own house, putting on a little show for my parents or doing theater, just watching the way it all came together. It just kind of spawned from there. And, there's some obscure ones that I laugh about it, and I've referenced it before, but Coyote Ugly is as bad a movie as it was. It was just one of those like in the moment, you know, where I was in life at the time, it was about following your dreams and not giving up on things. I'm like, yo, man, this movie's inspiring me. So I like that's, you know, that's the thing with television and film, right? You can pull from stuff, no matter how critically acclaimed it was or wasn't. There's things that will spark, you know, spark interest, spark creativity, spark motivation in people. And there were several of those throughout my early life. Awesome. In the second part of your question with my parents, yeah, I still have a great set of parents, and, you know, they never discouraged anything. They allowed my brother and I to kind of find what we like, and they were supportive of, you know, within whatever they could. Financially, we didn't have a ton of money or whatever, so it wasn't like they were gonna up and move and send me to you know, some crazy expensive school because I was in the theater, or when I wanted to race, we couldn't afford to buy, you know, the most expensive equipment or whatever. But they were always very supportive of everything we wanted to do. So, you know, when I said, hey, this is what I want to do for career, there was no judgment, there was no laughing, there was no, you should, you know, have a plan B, because it would, no, my parents have always been, you know what, we believe in you, and if you want to make it happen, you can. And so I had a good support system.
So you said about 16 years ago, is that when you moved to LA?
That is, I moved to LA, I think in 05, is summer 05.
So some people decide they go to New York, others go to LA. What made you pick LA before New York or any other spot in the country?
The weather and the space. I know both cities are very crowded, but I love New York and I love the energy of New York. But growing up in Texas, I'm not used to living on top of everything and everyone. So New York is always going to be one of my favorite cities to visit, but just not my style of place to live. And on top of that, you know, especially back then, LA will always be the hub for television and film. Mind you, nowadays, you know, Vancouver, right, where we filmed Man and Lois, is another hub. Atlanta's doing a lot. New York still films a lot. They're all over the place now, but theater was more, and will always be New York will be the hub for that. And as much as I love that, and still do and still want to do, you know, the goal is to do an off-Broadway play or even a musical at some point between seasons of Superman and Lois or other projects. But my heart was kind of set on television and film, and so that's what sent me out west.
What was one of the first things you got when you moved out there?
So there's kind of a cool story there. Like I did have fallback plans, whatever you want it to be. I had a job at the time. I was a flight attendant for Southwest Airlines, oh, wow, believe it or not. I was also racing at the time. So I was an instructor at the Bondurant School. I actually moved from Texas to Arizona for like 3.5 years and then out to LA. So I was pursuing both television, film, and racing at the time. And there came a point where there was like this fork in the road of, you know, do I go down the path of motorsports? Do I go down the path of entertainment? And motorsports, unlike a lot of other sports, yes, you have to have the talent and the connections and stuff, but it takes a lot of money to continue to climb the ladder of motorsports. And the investment for television and film was mainly in myself, you know, mental health, physical health, coaching classes, things like that. And it was, monetarily speaking, a lot less significant of an investment than racing, and equal in terms of passion. And so that's kind of what drove me to do that. And having Southwest Airlines as like a day job, so to speak, allowed me to travel back and forth for auditions, because initially I was living in Arizona still, and then still maintain, you know, health insurance and a steady paycheck. And it was a pretty flexible job too. If I needed to, you know, to have time off to film or whatever, most of the time I was able to readjust my schedule to do that. The reason I tell that story is it leads into kind of the first gig. So I was on a plane coming from Vegas to Burbank, and it was after the Billboard Music Awards. And, you know, the plane is everybody's getting off the plane when we landed. It was a bunch of different, you know, mainly musicians, but a bunch of different celebrities getting off the plane. They'd all come from the award show, et cetera. And I had a lot of fun with them. You know, Southwest Airlines, they hire personality more than anything. And, you know, you give me a microphone and an aluminum tube with a captive audience, and I'm going to have fun with them, especially coming from Vegas. So they all get off the plane. There's one guy kind of standing there waiting, and you know, as most of the people are off, he stops me. He's like, "Hey, I just got a question for you. Are you an actor? Are you an entertainer?" And I said, "I am." He's like, I should know you. And I'm like, okay. I had no idea who this guy was. And mind you, this is early days of the internet. So it wasn't like you could just get on your phone and like Google somebody right away. So we start chatting a bit, gave me his number. We exchanged info and kind of said, you know, you've got this energy about you that I like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, cool. Thank you. Very appreciative of it. I went home or went to the hotel that night and did Google him. And the first picture that popped up was him and Oprah Winfrey, like holding some Emmy awards that he had won for doing, I think it was for choreographing the opening and closing ceremonies of the Salt Lake City Olympics or something. His name is Kenny Ortega. Kenny is, he's, you know, he was a dancer, a choreographer, got into directing. You know, his big claim to fame has been in all the High School Musical stuff with Disney and everything. Really great human being. And at the time, he was directing television. And so he brought me on to do Gilmore Girls. It was, I think I did 3 episodes of that. I had like 2 or 3 lines cumulatively. It was a very small role, but he brought me on. It got me on an actual set of a real big, you know, Hollywood production. So I got to learn a lot. And I got, you know, into the union, into SAG-AFTRA, SAG at the time separately. But so that was kind of a nice little launch pad for me. He did me some big favors. It's not a small thing, you know, to bring someone with no resume on, even though the role was really small, just bring him on a set and get him going like that. Yeah. So I owe a lot to that, to him and to that moment, as it you know, it wasn't like I had these one line and blew everybody away and suddenly the floodgates open and I had a career ahead of me, but it allowed me to learn. I'm very much an observer and I like to learn as much about everybody's job on a set, and, you know, just so I can make their lives easy. And so I would observe and I would watch what the lighting guys are doing and the sound guys are doing and what happens between setups and between takes, and watch the actors. And so that experience in and of itself is something that you can't even be taught in class and whatnot. So an invaluable experience for sure.
It's awesome. Yeah. When I was doing research on you, I also noticed you got like a recurring role on General Hospital in the Graceland.
I was a series reg on that for like 2.5 years almost. And yeah, that was probably the first like big break, so to speak, in Hollywood. I did random guest spots here and there for years, did a lot of commercials, which helped pay the bills. But that was probably the first steady paycheck in Hollywood, was General Hospital. And again, it's one of those things like, you know, I think everybody has ideas of what they want to do. You know, for me, I wanted Tom Cruise's career, right? Or since watching Top Gun or whatever, but everybody starts at different places and goes on different paths. And this opportunity came up and, you know, I was like, okay, this is really cool. Auditioned for it, tested for it, ended up getting it. And I tell people all the time, like there's a weird stigma attached to all sorts of, you know, if you're doing soap operas, if you're doing comedies, if you're doing only drama, if you're doing television versus film, there's all these weird stigmas attached to that, which are stupid in my opinion. It's all art and it's all, you know, various forms of that. No one area makes you a better or worse actor or talent. It's just different ways of looking at it, right? And for me, it was a great opportunity. It was also a bit of like a actor's boot camp, right? So we would film entire episode in a day. And we're talking 100 and something page script. So I would have to memorize, you know, for my portion of that, 17, 20 pages, sometimes more a day worth of dialogue. So it really forces you to learn how to memorize quick. It forces you to make big decisions because you only get 2 or 3 takes and then you're moving on to the next setup. Whereas in episodic television, like Superman and Lois, you shoot the master, you shoot coverage, you shoot more coverage, you get it a little tighter. So you can play with those things a little bit more. And if you make a choice as an actor and you're like, well, that didn't work, then you can kind of adjust it. In soap operas, it's a machine, right? Everything kind of is moving at a very fast pace. So it forces you to really think a lot more preemptively and then live in that moment and make better decisions. Sometimes they don't work out, but it was a good training tool for sure.
Well, that's what I mean. It's a big difference working on a soap opera set and then working on, like, say, Superman or Lois, even just the filming. Like, you guys at the soap opera world, like you mentioned, you have to pump episodes out because they're on every day. It's not
every
like
day.
Once a week or once every few weeks, and you have a break.
Yeah, it was a lot. And so, you know, I did that almost 2.5 years. I can't remember what the full span was, but
Mm.
it was great. I met a lot of really great people, and I took a lot from it. And you get to the point where you're working on an episodic television show or a film set, and you just feel more confident going into each scene that you're doing as an actor, because the words are there, and you don't have to worry about that element of it. You can live more in that moment and really actively listen to your scene partner and what's happening in that moment. And that's where, in my opinion, that's where the magic happens, right? Is anybody can learn the lines, anybody can have a predetermined way that they want to deliver lines, etc. That is performance to a point, but for me it's more like the true art, and for me the passion behind acting is living in this alternate universe for segments at a time, and when you've got everything kind of prepared muscle memory wise in terms of what is written on the page and whatnot, then you just connect with your scene partner, and you live in that moment, and that's where some of the cool stuff happens.
Is it easier to learn a script for a soap opera or for like Superman and Lois?
I don't know the one's easier or more difficult. I think obviously the sheer amount of dialogue for soap opera is more difficult because there's so much more that you have to learn at a faster pace. Yeah. But it's different. Whereas you're on a stage with that, and there's set lighting. It's almost like theater in a sense. The blocking is very important because you've got 4 or 5 camera guys. You got lighting that's only adjusted to certain areas, so you kind of have to hit your marks. Certain beats are in that way predetermined. So it's a little less free than it would be on, say, Superman and Lois or any episodic television show. So that has its challenges. But in doing episodic television, you've got again, that's why living in the moment is so much more important, because the dialogue, there's what's written, and then there's the spaces in between what's written. And sometimes it's just a matter of, if you watch television and film a lot, there's moments, some of the best actors, some of their best performances happen when they're not saying a thing, when they're reacting to what's being said, when they're observing what's being said. It's in the eyes, it's in the facial expressions. So in that regard, there's those parts of doing episodic that have a little bit of a different challenge. I don't know that one's more difficult than the other, but both very cool.
That's awesome. So yeah, let's jump right into Superman and Lois. Like, how crazy was it that this show got picked up right away for a second season, like after like the second episode aired?
It's awesome. I mean, I don't know. I know that's probably happened before. I know it doesn't happen very often.
Right.
But it was really cool. And to me, for myself, obviously, but more for like our entire crew and in our writers' room and everybody that had been working on this so long, because I found out about the show like February, March of last year. And then the pandemic hit, and there were delays and more delays, et cetera. We didn't start filming until like October, I believe, November. I can't remember. But there were so many people, from Todd to everybody else in the writers' room that had already spent, a couple of years getting this thing prepped and ready. And so for our job is to bring a lot of their visions to life, right? And so when you have a situation like this where you've got talent on all ends of the spectrum and everybody pours their heart and soul into it, especially in a time when, so many people are away from their families and, working long hours, working Saturdays just to make this thing come to be. And then it's out there for the world to take in, but also judge. Once we're out there, everybody's hard work is just on display. And so to kind of see the initial reaction and response we got from the fan base and the audience, and look at the numbers and everything, that was a huge breath of fresh air. And subsequently the network's like, you're taking a risk anytime you put something out there. And I always say that the good and bad of doing something like Superman and Lois is you've got a bit of a built-in audience, but that audience also has expectations and they have standards, right? And so you're going into it with a good group of people. It's not a new concept, so it's not like you're trying to find an audience necessarily right off the bat. But if you don't do right by that audience, you're done. And so for us to kind of come on with this new concept and this new take on a superhero show that clicked was really good. And kind of everybody could breathe for a moment after that. And so to hear about being renewed right away just allowed us to really change the energy. At that point, I think we had already shot we were filming maybe episode 5 or 6 when episode 1 aired. So up until that point, it's all of us thinking that we're creating something great, which we all did from the get-go. We knew this was special, but still waiting to see how people were going to respond to it. So once we got that response and that, second season order right off the bat, man, it just really made the energy, go up another notch for the remainder of the season in terms of filming.
Did you go in for Erik, or was it for somebody else at first?
I went in for Kyle. Yeah,
sorry, Kyle. Yeah,
that's all good. Kyle, I get called both names all the time. Yeah. I'm used to it. Yeah, I did. I went in for this character. I was actually in Toronto filming something else. Got the script, loved the character. And again, growing up in Texas and spending some time in small towns and whatnot, like that are very similar to Smallville in terms of mentality and, community and loving people. To me, I really connected to this character right off the bat. And so when I got the script, I was like, oh yeah, we've got to figure this one out. I had to fly back in to audition for, I can't remember if I sent the tape initially or if I flew in initially. Either way, I did have to fly in from Toronto to meet with the network, with all the execs at Warner Brothers and with Todd and those guys. And there was just this crackling in the room. Like, I felt super confident. The energy with everybody else around, we knew that this kind of clicked. And this is one of those roles that I think was kind of, the timing, everything was kind of right for me. So there was no other like, maybe he should be considered for this, or, I would like to maybe be considered for that. No, it was this Kyle from day one.
So did you, when you first auditioned, did you know you were going for this show? Because I know sometimes like DC is very like strict. They don't even want you to know what you're going for.
I knew pretty early on. I can't remember if I think the initial script that I got had some make-believe title on it, and I didn't get the full pilot script. I had an abbreviated version of that, but there was enough in there and enough, conversations back and forth where early on I was like, oh, okay, this is what this is. And that made it even more exciting, obviously.
Were you a Superman fan growing up? Like, were you into comics at all? Like I liked the shows, but I was never into comics.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I think we all were at some age in life big fans of Superman. I think we all probably had the Superman underwear at some point growing up as a kid, right? I didn't go into comic book stores religiously. I had comic books. I read them. I wasn't a collector of them per se, and I didn't follow, the story of Superman religiously as a kid. But I was a big fan of the idea behind it and superhero shows in general. And then once I knew more about this show, even though Kyle, is a new character and wasn't in the comic books or whatever, I did start going down that rabbit hole of researching things to try to learn a little bit more, not just for performance sake or for the show's sake, but also for the audience sake, the fan's sake. Like, I want to be able, I'll never go on and talk on a podcast or, engage on social media with fans and pretend to be an expert on things, because I'm not. But I can learn a lot by just engaging in conversation. And I wanted to be able to at least hold conversations about some of that stuff without, pretending, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's, I'll read our scripts as they come in, and there'll be in this case, like when they introduced Steel and whatnot this season, I read the script and I'm like, wait a minute, this seems like a really big moment. And, especially with Wole's character evolving from the Stranger to thinking it was, a Luthor to whatever. And I'll read these scripts and then I'll go and kind of research the history of the characters. And I'm like, whoa, the audience is going to lose their minds when they see this. So I love knowing enough, but not knowing everything, because every time I get a new script, there's like a surprise moment in there, even for me. So I've become a bit of a fan, more so than I was even before.
Yeah. So you mentioned, like Kyle is not in the comics. Like, so how do you prepare to play this role then? Like, do you obviously I know the writers and producers give you ideas like how to play the character, but like, what do you do also?
For me, there was a lot of, again, I know Kyle. I grew up around a lot of these guys, and I know a lot about that small town mentality and pride and sense of community, and also being for lack of a better term, he is their superhero, right? He's the fire chief. He's the small town hero. These are his people. And so I knew a lot of these people. My dad, for example, he was one of 7 kids. He was the only boy. And growing up, especially in his generation, there's a lot of responsibility put on that. And they grew up as farmers. They farmed cotton out in a very small town outside of Lubbock, Texas. And so, there's that sense of pride that I was able to pull from my own dad, from my own grandfather, from his friends, from a lot of the people that I had met there. And then the other great thing is, working as a flight attendant for 3.5 years, I've been to 42 of the 50 United States. Oh, wow. So I've gotten to see a lot of these, different cultures, these different belief systems, these different things. And so I'm able to pull little bits here and there, even though Smallville is a fictitious town. Yeah, there are a million Smallvilles all across this country. And so for me, preparation is, I don't want to say it was easy. It never is, but it came more natural to me because I was able to pull from real life experience and knowledge of different people that I'd met throughout my life.
Any challenges playing this character? Because I when you first, when the season first started, you kind of don't know, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? But you could also tell you had to kind of he's fighting with something also, demons.
There's some demons. Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. Those always have their challenges, and honestly, those are the challenges that I love as an actor, like the layers. Any good character is always going to be dimensional and layered, and thankfully we have some incredible writers on the show that really know how to write for to do those kind of characters justice. Challenges, yes, but nothing super daunting. For me, it was I'd get up and I'd be like, oh, this is going to be fun to film, or this is a great thing, and early on, Kyle dealing with his inner demons and how he dealt with it, early on, it was the drinking and going through those phases and realizing, the moments of self-realization for him as an individual and the responsibility and the weight on his shoulders for his town, but also balancing that with trying to be a good father and a good husband and riding those waves of emotion and, stumbling and falling and getting back up and being frustrated with himself as a human being. Man, those things are really, really great challenges, but really great things to kind of play. So there's certain scenes, like some of the stuff with Indy in their relationship that emotionally are very challenging, to kind of, I say prepare for, you always prepare, but also letting go, right? And living in those moments and allowing, even though Kyle's a very proud man, allowing the vulnerability to creep in here and there and allowing that to come off, on screen is just, it is a challenge. And when you're done filming for the day, there's days where, I'll go back and kind of lay in my trailer for an hour or two just to kind of make sure I don't go home in a very sad mood or an angry mood or whatever, So those are the challenges, I think, more emotionally with Kyle. But I love the nuances and the layers that we've been able to start to reveal with him.
What do you love most about this character?
How real he is. In a superhero world, it's awesome. And as a show, this statement kind of goes for the show as a whole, the balance between superhero and sci-fi world and real life family drama is just, to me, that's what I love about the show. I watch it every week. And again, I kind of, I've read the scripts, but by the time it airs, it's, we're 3-4 episodes beyond that. I remember, but I don't remember everything. And I also don't get to see everybody else's performances, right? Most of my scenes are with Emmanuel, with Indy. We've got some with Tyler and Bitsy and stuff. I don't get a ton with the other kids, with Alex and Jordan and whatnot. And so, or I'm not there when, Bitsy and Tyler have their own scenes and all that. So getting to watch that, having read the script, but getting to watch it as a fan is really cool. And, I don't know. I think the most exciting part about playing it is just how real he is and how much that brings to the show in terms of balance and value. It's always going to be a Superman and Lois show, and as it should be. And you want those big superhero moments and stuff. But I do like the dynamic of having those, those simple family moment. Not simple, really. They're super complicated. They seem simple at surface value, but real life family moments and stuff that we all go through as human beings that aren't superheroes, and how we overcome those challenges and those obstacles. So I like that element of it for sure.
So a couple episodes ago, you kind of had that. Well, we could spoil it, I guess, if people are caught up with it. How you kind of had superpowers.
Yeah, that when I knew early on I knew kind of where certain things were going, but you know, the way we were trying to get through episodes and stuff on such a time crunch this season, we wouldn't get the actual scripts until, you know, maybe the week before we were going to start filming them. And so when I finally got that, I was like, whoa, okay, this is going to be fun. And talked to Todd a bit about what, you know, beyond that episode, what it was going to look like and everything. And it was, to me, that was a lot of fun to play, because it was a whole different character for an episode, essentially. And getting to go really dark with it. And
you're a villain.
Yeah, just have some crazy fun with it too. Like be this really bad person, or not even person, this, you know, this Kryptonian. It was a lot of fun to do that in a breath of not fresh air, because it was complicated and physical and all of that, but it was just another challenge, which I think is really cool too. You know, the just something else thrown into the mix that you wouldn't get to do on a non-superhero show, right? So getting to do that was really fun.
So because they're like, you know, I've had actors on before where they don't enjoy playing the bad guy. There's other ones that love it. What's your take on this?
I love it. I've always, there's something really cool. And I think a part of it is, look, I mean, I think I'm a pretty nice guy in real life. I try to be, you know, a good human being and stuff. And so there's something really cool about completely letting go and going to this weird, dark place. What other job in this world would you, first of all, that would be heavily frowned upon and probably grounds for being terminated and or thrown in jail. So in what other setting in life, or what other career path could you completely become this psychotic, you know, dark, villainous human being, and then still get to go home at the end of the day and not have any repercussions? So for me, it's really, really fun to play the villains. I do enjoy it quite a bit.
You mentioned you have a lot of scenes with Emmanuel and Indy. Like, how do you describe that chemistry? Because most of your scenes are with them.
Awesome. I mean, there's both, and the crazy thing is it's that way off camera too. Like, and I think that's what really helps with all the cast, but especially those that I work closely with. Any talented actor can create a sense of chemistry on camera with somebody that they may not even know. That's what our job is, right? Is to sell whatever it is that we're bringing to life. When it's genuine, it makes it so much more enjoyable and so much better on camera too. And I mean, I've taken on this real life father figure role with Indy. You know, she's only 19. She just turned 20 years old. And so she could be my daughter in real life. And you know, her being out in Vancouver on her own and away from family, and we're all in this bubble where we can't travel and stuff. Both Em and I really took on like parent-like figures towards her, and that, you know, that helped Em and I bond on that level. But also, Em is she's an incredible human being as well, and she gets along really well with my real life wife, and you know, they have their own side conversations and stuff without me now. So having that real life chemistry and everything is really cool. And then we have fun with it. You know, there's some emotional stuff that we have to go through, definitely. Some hard stuff we have to go through, but you know, in between those scenes, we have fun. You know, there's days where we all have to focus and really get through that stuff, but then there's also days like in the latest episode, and if you're not caught up, spoiler, but the latest episode, the whole water fight thing with our family, there was zero acting involved in that. That was just us being us and having a blast. And that's what I love about them as castmates and friends, is we just have a lot of fun together.
Is Kyle ever gonna like Lois or what?
You know, at this point, they've made up their, I don't know how much, I got to remember what's aired and what hasn't, because I can't say too much, but they, you know, in this last episode, or maybe it was the episode before that, you know, he he ate a little bit of crow, so to speak,
Yeah.
and said, you know what, Lois, you're good people. I was wrong. And so that is Kyle's extension of the olive branch, extension of the handshake. You know, Kyle's not the kind of person that's just going to be like, well, you know, damn it, Lois, you're a great person and I was wrong the whole time. That's never going to be him.
Right.
But we got to see a bit of that. And yeah, I think Kyle and Lois will be on better terms, you know, from here on out.
Where do you think Kyle's going to head towards season 2? What do you?
We've had some talks about this, and what I'm hoping for is really getting to know. I mean, look, and this goes for all characters, but especially Kyle. Any first season of a television show, if done right, is you don't want to do 12 to 15 episodes that are all like pilot light. You have a pilot, and then you evolve, and you let the characters blossom a bit. Season 2 and beyond is where you start getting into backstory, when you start learning more about how they arrived at where they are in life and whatnot. So for me, I'm pretty excited to see a glimpse into, you know, we saw that with episode 11, which I thought was a really great, you know, breath of fresh air for the season itself. You went from like this crazy episode 10, where Kyle is somebody completely different and whatnot, to this episode 11, which was a series of flashbacks kind of talking a bit about, you know, all of the characters and where they were in life and everything. And I thought that was a really, really cool thing to do. I don't think we'll ever be a show where it's, you know, This Is Us, where it goes back and forth in time all the time, which I love. Great show, by the way. But I think we'll see a little bit of that going into season 2 with everybody. And I'm really excited to, you know, to see where it goes. That's the beauty of doing television, right? Is like, we all, writers have kind of their ideas for characters, and producers, and then actors, we all start to, as time progresses, we all start to know the character so much more. Early on, you know, an actor has their idea of who this character is, and a writer has their idea and whatnot. Sometimes there's heads but butt, and you get a little combative. We haven't had any of that on this show. Everybody's been super great about, you know, collaborating and open to ideas. If I had a suggestion, or if the writers said, hey, this is, you know, why we think this, oh, that's awesome. You know, we all had those conversations and kind of developed this together. But, you know, I think moving forward, getting to see now that we all kind of get Kyle, you know, together, and we're all on the same page there, seeing where it evolves. And it is cool for me too. I have ideas of where I think, you know, he might go or we might go, but it is cool now to have that much trust in our writers, to know that they're gonna do justice to the story, and then kind of a little surprise every week when I get a new script and get to see where we're going on this journey, you know?
Yeah. So you guys just finished filming. What's next for you? Like, any other projects that you're gonna be working on? Are you just taking some time off?
I need to take some time off this hiatus. I mean, it's been a year and a half for everybody, and you know, we're not through it all. There's still a lot of, the world is not the same, and so for me, you know, I had an opportunity to maybe do something in our off time here, and dates didn't quite work out, number one, and number two, I was just like, you know, I really want to be, my family's been up in Vancouver with me, thankfully, my wife and my son and my dog, but I really wanted some time to just kind of, you know, relax a bit and
decompress.
We still haven't had that. As soon as we left, you know, Canada, we went to Texas to visit family, and then LA to visit friends and some family, and you know, that's great and I love it, but it hasn't been a vacation. It's still, you know, my parents and my wife's parents you know, my son just turned 3, as I said, and they hadn't seen him for half of his life. So those were the important things, is to make sure we got to reconnect with family and friends a bit. And then now we've got another, whatever it is, 6-7 weeks before we go back to filming. I don't know what we're going to do. It's a weird thing to be kind of nomadic, but at the moment, you know, right before I came on the podcast, my wife and I were talking about where are we going tomorrow or next week, or like, what are we going to do? And we don't really know. And there's something
not a bad
strange,
thing,
but really cool about that, you know?
So you said you're going to start filming around 6-7 weeks. They talked about the show's not coming back to what, January, right?
It'll probably be similar to what it was this last season. So again, that's a similar timeline to what we started with last year. We started initially, we're going to start filming in September, and then there were delays and more delays. And ultimately that's unfortunately why we've had these, little 2 and 3 week hiatus between episodes here and there. It's not good for us, for the fans. I mean, we like the momentum of being on the air every week, even though the majority of people now stream stuff and they'll put 5 episodes together and they'll binge watch it over a weekend. The way people consume television has changed dramatically. We get that, but still nice to have that momentum of being out there every week. So I think the idea is, and I can't speak, don't put this set in stone because I don't control any of that, but I think the idea is, we'll start filming September. Hopefully, it'll be there'll be a lot better rhythm and a lot less delays this time around. And I definitely know we don't have a premiere date set, but the idea is something similar to what we did this season, is an early, late winter, early spring premiere, I think.
Erik, lastly, how can the viewers and the listeners find you on social media?
It's pretty simple. It's my name, just Erik Valdez. So on Instagram, Twitter, I'm pretty active on both. I'm trying to be better. I've taken a little bit of time the last couple of weeks just to, again, be with family and whatnot, but I try to answer as many questions and interact with as many comments and stuff as possible, because the honest thing is, like, the fans are a massive part of what we do. And so I like to take the time to try and interact with as many as possible. I can't get to everybody all the time, but I do my best to do that. So by all means, please, guys, if you wanted to interact, I love that. It's just Erik Valdez, ErikValdez, and that's across all platforms for the most part.
Erik, man, this was great. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thank you for having me. This has been awesome.
This was